So this is the image so far of the little nuthatch bird, and for this video we're going to be working on the background. So it's going to be a blurred out kind of bush, tree, greenish foliage background. And once again I'll be using the Prismacolors, the Polychromos and the Luminants to build up layers and get some textures. So off we go. So first of all I'm actually going to map in some darker areas. And to do this I'm just using the side of the pen, that's all. And I'm allowing the texture of the paper to come through. So my challenge with this part is that I basically got to make sure I don't put any detail in, which for me is quite difficult to do. Now I don't plan to use any blending solutions or anything like that, because I should be able to get a decent effect just by working with the pencils, though it's probably going to be a lot harder than getting out some Zest-It or thinners or something like that. But since I don't really want to ruin an image by experimenting on it at this time, I'd rather just play it safe. Because I want gentle marks and such, I'm not putting sharp points onto the pencils. I'm keeping them quite blunt, just so that I don't get any really sharp points or anything like that. So I'm just using small circular motions and just almost doing a line. And now I need to just find a mid-tone, even a mossy type green. So I'll bring that colour in because that's going to come in quite handy. Look through my prismas. Right, just need to sharpen this one to see if I can get anything. So this is like a mid-tone. Just a little bit too close to that light pencil. So I'm going to bring in this one. So one thing about the gold lettering, I don't know if anybody else struggles, but I really struggle to read these. Green yellowish looks of it, but yeah, I really struggle to read gold writing on pencils. So as you can see, it's still looking a little bit scrappy because I've just put down the base layers, and the more layers that we go, then I will start to smooth it out as we go. So I've just put down the dark kind of base layer, which I will go over and soften up as we go, and then we're going to bring highlights in at the end just to pick up the key areas. Okay, so just going to zoom in a little bit into an area and see if I can show you a bit better how this is going to go. So we got browns and dark greens here, and then we got a couple of areas of light green, and then some different greens mixed in there. So I'm going to try and use a mid-tone, and starting from the corner start to build up the detail. So I'll be using light yellows and all sorts to bring out the highlights. So what I'm now doing is I've actually put a layer of very light luminance over a lot of the grain. This is just to create a surface that I want to work on. So it's kind of part burnished it, but it's also giving me a chance to almost glaze, because I've got that translucent creamy layer underneath there, and then I've got the darker layers underneath, and I just very gently starting to put on a lighter green, and the darks are showing through and the lights are just coming forward slightly. Suddenly my camera is still playing up and not really giving me true colours that I can see actually on the paper, but we're getting there. So this is quite a fuffy process. I'm hoping to have it done quite quickly. There's only so much green I can stand. And you'll see again I'm just constantly rotating the image. I'm just going to try and change the lighting a little bit. Doesn't really help much. As I said, I wanted a non-detailed background but just with the odd shape in it. So that's what we're aiming for. I'm having a think. Yeah, I know that's very, very dangerous to do, and I shouldn't do it too often. Right. It's going to involve cotton wool buds. Lots of cotton wool buds. That is, if I can get into said packet of cotton wool buds. Okay. Right. Cotton wool buds. Right. You know, I said I wasn't too sure on trying out blenders with this card. Why am I scared? It's not going to be a drawing. It's a sketchbook cover. Why am I scared? This is partly experimenting. Right. Jesus, mouse. Okay, this will either go absolutely amazingly or absolutely terribly. Please put your votes in now. I probably should have put a lid on this. Come on, you can do it. First time I've actually done this also with a cotton wool bud. Normally I use a paintbrush. In fact, I'm actually preferring the cotton wool bud a lot. We're getting there. Come on, craft card, hang in there. Now the good thing is, because I put so much wax and oil down here, the damage to the card underneath should be absolutely minimal. This is going to be tricky a little bit. Though I have kind of oversaturated the cotton wool bud, I think. But hey, if it works, it works. I'm just going to have to make sure that I don't stay too long on one area. That's better. I'm actually feeling a bit happy with that. This is the best thing about when you're creating something completely different, or trying a new technique and doing something in which you know you're going to learn from. So right now I'm learning that I can apply a Zest-It blender to craft card which has been thoroughly coated in ink. What do I keep on calling it? Ink, people? Somebody save me. Not ink, wax and oil from pencils. And I'm only just starting, so I've got to keep a gentle circular motion because I don't want any harsh lines. Right, now I'd luckily put the remaining Zest-It in the lid. Carefully dry that out slightly. Right, so I'm going to have to rotate the image. You know me, I'm rotating images. Right, and then right from the edge and working over what I've just worked, so that I don't get too many strange lines. And because the cotton bud seems to be very wet, I'm just going to try and knock a bit of that off around the drawing, and then come back in and rework. These areas where I didn't put quite so much pencil down, I can feel it's a little bit more scratchy. Today's word, scratchy. So this is where it's more likely to interact with the actual paper. But I'm hoping, because I'm moving the wax and oil around, it's not going to be quite so bad. I should be able to put a decent coat on there. Oh yeah, there's a big difference from where I've done a heavy application to where I've got a light application. Like with when I use a pencil, I'm using all parts of the cotton bud so that I'm not scratching the actual plasticky bit onto the card. There we go. Wowzers. It stinks to high heaven, I can tell you that much. But that has smoothed that out. Well, actually, I'm quite chuffed with that effect. Once again, certain parts look completely different on the camera. I don't quite get that. Work over a couple of bits. Right. So down into this area. So I'm kind of glad that I put all of that luminance cream into there, because that's helped add to the effect. So where there's such a build up of some of the waxes, you can really, the cotton bud just glides over. So I just need to make some circular motions in there to give it some texture. Hey, I've learnt something today. It makes it even more worth it. I'm going to push a couple of those bits back. Of course, once you put Zestit on, that means that you're going to lose a slight layer of that wax. So you should be able to then come over that and apply a little bit more pencil. Alright, so that's going to need to dry. Quite a bit came off, so that's good. So we'll give that a few minutes to, while that's drying, in fact, we can start work on the tree trunk. So that's my blurred out background, which once dry, I'll probably add a tiny bit more highlights to. And the other side of the craft card, you can see a little bit where we've got a bit too much of the Zestit, but that should dry out quite quickly. Feeling quite chuffed with that. That's worth an experiment. The thing is, if you don't try these things, you don't know what the result's going to be. So for the tree branch, I'm going to be using a lot of greys. It's a very old apple tree. Well, when I say very old, it was about 30 years old, bless. I miss that apple tree. But it had started to have problems where the fruit was coming onto it and then it was just literally dropping off. And was having rotting problems and such. So for this, I'm going to do a very quick undercoat of a pale grey. In this case, I do want a little bit of the paper to show through because of that colour. Honestly, probably end up using the blenders just to do this as well. To colour-wise. So in fact, I'm just going to block in a couple of areas, because where we, our cats and the neighbours' cats used to climb this tree constantly, and they would get onto the Y part of the branch, because it was in two parts. So the main trunk split into two, then each branch from that split into three, plus and such. But the cats would sit and quite literally, instead of sharpening their claws on the base, which they often did, they would climb up there and then sharpen their claws. So a lot of the actual bark had been stripped off by cat clawing. And on occasion the odd cat fell out of it, especially when they were trying to catch the wood pigeons. And they always used to get onto the shed roof from here. So they would clamber up the tree, along a branch, and then jump onto the shed roof, and then you'd be yelling at them for half an hour to get off the shed roof. Cats. I love them. Now I'm putting down this mossy greenish colour as part of the undercoat. Oh, darkish brown, I think is going to do it. So I'm going to need quite a little bit of shadow under here where the bird is, where the little nuthatch is. And a mid-tone on the browns. So just building up a very, very light texture. So I've just put in where the highlights are, and I'm just now going to bring in some of the shadows. So if you know anything about trees, you'll probably know about the lichens on trees, and that certain lichens only grow in certain conditions. So if you went out and had a look at your nearest tree, you might see a yellow or a bluish colour lichen, and the colours denominate almost like what the air quality is. And also you'll notice that some lichens will only grow on one side of a tree. They're very fastidious little things. And where this tree was quite poor water, earth and air quality because it was next to a excessively busy road. Had several thousand cars going up a day, so we had a lot of blue and yellow lichen all the way up it. But I'm going to miss out a lot of that detail because I want the bird to be in focus, so I'm not overly fussed if I put too much of that detail in there. If this was a proper drawing on like my Faber-Castell paper, then yeah, I would be putting in that detail. But because this is meant to just be a sketchbook cover, and for some reason I'm spending far too long and putting far too much effort into it, it's gonna not have all of that detail. One thing I need to learn how to do is to loosen up and not get so bogged down in wanting to do detail. So I just need to add in, I've added in some blues there just to reflect the bird, so now I just need to put in some light greys. There we go. And then just push a couple of the darker colours, I think. Once again, I'm just getting a lot of wax down onto there. So I think I am going to bring the cotton bud through. So I'm going to need to build up quite a lot of layers. Just actually going to map in that foot, otherwise we're going to lose the little feet to the detail. So what I've done there is I've literally just put the very thin layer of the zest it down, and now with a very sharp black pen I'm just going to come through and pick out a little bit of the trees detail. While this is still slightly damp, the pencil should just slightly pull in and soften out. So just turning the image again, and I'm only just hinting at marks and whatnots. So a lot of broken line work, so not solid lines, just scratches almost. So if you're going to use zest it, make sure you're in a well ventilated room. I quite often end up with quite bad nosebleeds after using it, and that's in a ventilated room. And also make sure that you wash your hands very thoroughly. You don't want this to go anywhere near your eyes, mouth or any other areas, ears included. And certainly don't smoke near it, for goodness sake. So hopefully you can see the difference there just by adding in a tiny bit of detail into the background now. So now I can just add in a couple of final little bits of detail. Most of that's going to go onto the legs of the bird. So let's check my photo. Just going to fill in a couple of little bits on the branches where I know there's a couple of highlights. And just put in a little bit more of the shadow. And I'm going to add a little bit of blue into that shadow. carry a little bit of that through the branch. Right. So that is pretty much the actual drawing done. I spent far too long on it, put too much into it. Really shouldn't have done that, considering it's probably only going to be sold at a couple of quid. So the next stage. So we now need this image to fit on to this book. So let's bring the camera out. Over. Ooh. So to do this, just move those cables out of the way. So to do this, we're going to be using the double-sided tape. In fact, it actually has to fall very quickly. Give that a brush to make sure there's nothing sticking to it. At this point, the zest is still partially drying. And a couple of very wet patches on the back. So then it's a case of putting on the double-sided tape and making sure that it's right up against the edge. It's flat. I'm not bothered if I put too much on there. Because I can always trim it off. But keeping it nice and tight. Any excess can just go straight in the middle. So once the zest is dry, I will give it a spray varnish, probably with the Crofter's Companion shimmer spray. I'm thinking gold, which is quite a light sparkle in it, but it will varnish and protect the image to a degree. It's not going to be an absolute varnish like you would on oils or something like that, but it's just going to give it some protection, which is better than none. I mean, I don't think many people take notepads and stuff out in the rain that often, so in theory it probably won't be needed in that sense. Also, at craft fairs I find people handle stuff a lot, so I might usually even try and handle the food. So you get things on your table and people instantly pick it up, turn it over, and you don't know where people's hands have been, though I can guarantee they've been to the bathrooms at least, had something greasy or been stuck in their mouth, touched filthy money, you know. So there's some things that you're guaranteed, and that's why it's nice to just protect your artwork, and even just if you're doing stickers or badges or anything like that, maybe lessen how much you put out and keep a bit to the back, and then just have a sign up saying more stock, please ask for more details or something like that. When I did the Kingston Moorwood show in November last year, we put out some of my mum's knitted hedgehogs just to get people's attention, and it worked. People were coming over, picking them up, poking them, squeezing them. They didn't actually kind of ask if it was alright. There were a couple of derogatory comments of my hedgehog's better than yours. But it was the whole kind of, especially with kids, when they're sucking their hands or they've got sticky sweets in hand, and it's mummy, and they touch. It can be really irritating in all honesty, because if a kid's got sticky hands and then they touch something without their parents' permission, and the parents should be given permission or saying no, don't you dare touch, if they damage an item via sticky fingers, then technically it's the old rule of you break it, you buy it, because you've technically made it unsellable, or it will need work before it can be sold. So it's something, when you're doing a sale and stuff, you need to just be aware of. Quite often I make sure that things that kids want to touch are actually at the back. They're visible, but they can't be physically picked up. I mean, I have it where I work in the bakery. The amount of kids who run over, touch, or there was a couple, make you laugh. They actually were picking up the donuts or trying to put their fingers into the sugar and then licking them and then putting them back. And you can't say anything to the parents because it's not right, is it? You can't tell somebody else how to raise their children. But it's so frustrating because then you have to throw that product away. But it's the same kind of with a item. I mean, imagine if you just knitted a beautiful white scarf. You've got it out on display, and so far nobody's picked up. They've all admired and said, "Wow, I like that scarf. How much is it?" Blah de blah. And then little Timmy, who's just eaten a very large amount of chocolate, comes along. And without warning, before you can say or do anything, reaches over and grabs your scarf. You then have got a damaged product, which, in all honesty, chocolate is an absolute nightmare to get out of wool. So what are you going to do? Now, I mean, yeah, with woolen products, maybe it'd be a better idea to have them wrapped and stuff, but even if you've got a really beautiful drawing or a card, homemade card, that's out on display, and that happens, you're within your rights at the end of the day to turn around to the people and say, right, your child has destroyed it, I'm now asking you to buy it at full price. Because after all, you've just spent all that time doing that stuff. And a lot of the fares are jolly well expensive. So, after sticking it down, there we go. So that is an improved-ish drawing of a nuthatch, and then for the back I've just left a simple thing. You know what I want to do? I want to put a drawing on there. No, we're gonna leave it. I will probably in the end of the day put a sketch onto the back. Now, this was a bit where I was saying about the issue with the colour, and the fact that you need to just be aware of the colour that's on this bit. As long as you can try and get it naturally to coincide, then it should work. And I have matched in some of those greens into this image. So unlike the zebra, where this was grey and this was yellow, so what I've had to do is paint the whole thing gold and then put gold. You can see that gold glitter. Is it sparkly? You can see the shine of the varnish and a little bit of the glitter. So I've actually painted that gold completely and then used the gold varnish over that, and I do like that sparkle. And then with the one from Smith's, I wasn't so worried because it was black. My lighting's diabolical today, isn't it? I don't know what it's like. So that was black, so once again, because it was black and colours in the image, not worried. And I put a bit of that Scott varnish on. And then another one that I did, I'd done flowers. It didn't quite work. This was the one where I did the Spectrum Noir pens as a base. Wasn't quite so happy with that. But it was grey and yellow again, so gold pen through, and I rubbed a gold pen around the edge and made sure that I had the same types of gold in there, and then you can see that's got a bit of a heavier varnish on there. In fact, a bit of it even travelled over that side. So that is, in conclusion, the end result of... I'm gonna cry. I don't know why my lighting's going really bad. My apologies. Right. Come on, camera. I have no idea what's going on with my lighting today. Come on. Let's point you upwards. Right. Hopefully the camera will settle. So that's basically the end result. And what you can achieve by just buying a little sketchbook thing, or having a route around and finding a old pad that you don't use, a sketchbook with the cheapy ones that we all go and get when we need a quick bit of paper, or even a shopping list book, because they're quite popular, those really long ones. And something that I'm hoping to do, though I know it's not really sustainable, whereas this is going to last fair amount, 200 pages, that's going to last. So that's quite a good one. It's not just going to be a pick up and throw away job, which I try not to do crafts that are going to be pick up and throw away. So I was really tempted on doing wrapping paper. What do we do with wrapping paper? We wrap, tear it off, throw it in the bin. It's you might as well go back to what people did years ago, just put it in a brown paper bag. If we can cut back on wrapping paper, cuts back on landfill, helps the environment. But I really fancy doing tags like this. The thing is, what do you do with a tag? You read it and you throw it. So I've still got to think about that. Now, a few of you say, but you do cards. I do cards, which, if used correctly, double up as miniature artworks, because all my card sizes will fit in frames. So if somebody buys a card from me, I often say, once it's done, put it in a frame. And you've got a piece of artwork from an artist who's local to the area, and, pitch, 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 sell, sell, sell. But it's most of the time, I've had customers come back to me and say, oh, they've got it hung on their wall. They love that scene. They want it. And so it's not just a case of open the card, read the message, leave it out for a day, throw it away. I'd certainly, anybody else who's doing cards and things like that, try and pitch things from that angle. If it's to a younger audience, suggest the poster boards where you can clamp and pin things to them and do collages. So definitely reuse and try and start thinking a little bit on crafting, on the impact of the environment. But for me, this way, I can create a lovely piece of art, and I found a pad that I'm not going to use, and I've reused it. So I hope this has really helped inspire you guys to get out there, have a rummage around, see if you can find some cheap little bits. It doesn't even have to be a lined pad, it can be a sketchbook, a graph pad. Even if you find one at a second-hand shop, and as long as it's got a good amount of pages in, have a go. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and thank you very much to everyone who's popped in and watched. It's very appreciated. Please remember that you can find me on YouTube. There's a link. If you're watching me on Twitch, there's a link below. If you're watching me on YouTube, you're already here. But there is a link to my Facebook and other social media things where you can find updates of work and things that are going on, if you're interested in that sort of thing. But until next time, take care everybody, all the best, and happy drawing to you all.